What's up, guys? Hope everybody had a great weekend. Welcome to Mondays with Mike, except today is Tuesday. All right, guys, this is going to be a quick one this week. We're going to be looking at editing iPhone photos in Lightroom, and specifically, we're going to be taking a look at a few photos you maybe have already seen if you saw our iPhone versus professional camera video, but we're going to be diving into how I did the edits on those photos and kind of how we brought iPhone photos really to life through Lightroom. We're going to be looking at it on the desktop and also on your mobile app with Lightroom. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're here in Lightroom. I've got 5 photos picked out from this specific shoot on this trip. We are going to look at each of these individually real quick, go through before and after. So we'll go ahead and open up the first one. So this is after and then the before. So this is what it looked like straight out of the iPhone. This is what it looked like after we did a little bit of edits. Next one, here's before, this is after. Third one, before and after. The fourth one, before and after. And the last one, before and after. So we're gonna look at these 5 photos. We'll go ahead and we're just gonna reset all of these. Okay, so the first thing I wanna do here is I wanna come over and I wanna look at these filters. This warm contrast is one of my favorites. So we're gonna click this warm contrast. Then let's see, let's bring down the exposure a bit here, probably close to a full stop. And it's already brought our blacks down for us too. And then the next thing, I'm just gonna go ahead and bump this vibrance and saturation up. So that's looking pretty good there. And then from there, I wanna go to our curves here, and I'm just gonna make a slight S curve. So now we're looking at her and we're saying, wow, well, she is way too dark. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come grab this radial filter tool, click this, and then we're just gonna drag this down and make a nice radial filter that will cover all of Kelsey here. So in order to not affect the outside, because right now if you hold here, all the red is showing what you're gonna affect. So you're gonna affect the outside and not her. So I can show you as an example. It's gonna blow out the edges here. We don't wanna do that. We wanna affect Kelsey, not the background. So we're gonna come down here to invert, select invert, and then we're just gonna bring our exposure up here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So then next thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna bring our shadows up just a little bit here. Okay, so now we've got this radial filter around her and it's brought her back quite a bit. If we pull it away and then bring it back, you can see what it's doing. So the next thing I wanna do is you're gonna hit enter, and I just wanna brighten up her face a little bit. So we're gonna make another one that just goes right around her face. You know, kind of keep it tight here. Come back down, select invert, and then we're just gonna bring the exposure up a little bit more on her face, brighten her face up. And we'll do the same with the shadows. Maybe bring that highlight down just a touch. Okay, so this is looking pretty good to me. So this is before and after. So we can kind of see our colors have been changed a little bit here in her jacket. Her jacket was originally purple. Now it's looking pretty blue. So we're gonna come down to our HSL and we're gonna try to bring these colors back to where they belong. We're gonna first start with these reds and oranges. So the reason I want to start here is because it is fall, so we want to kind of give it more of a fall look. So we're going to warm it up, kind of make it a little yellow and orange. So we're going to just bring this red more to the orange here. And you'll notice most of it's changing kind of in the background a little bit in her skin tone. So we got to watch that. And then we'll take these yellows and we're just going to push those because that's going to mostly hit those trees in the back. That's looking pretty good, but now we want to get her coat back to where it belongs. So we're going to come down here to the blue. I'm just going to push these blues up and it's going to kind of move more towards the purple. You can kind of see it coming back. And then we're going to come to the purple. Now we're getting that coat back to where it belongs. And then we'll play with these magentas a little bit for her shirt. Okay, so now we've kind of played with those colors a bit there. So let's look at before and after. Here's before and here's after. So you can see the color of her coat and her shirt has stayed pretty good. She's got more light on her face, so her face is more lit up, but I've added some contrast to the image. And we've taken the background where it was a little green and yellow, and we've made it a little more orange, and we've brought some of those greens out as well. I think this is looking pretty good. The next thing you can do though is you can come down here to your noise reduction, and we're just gonna pull this up a little bit to smooth this image out just a touch. You don't wanna go too far, because if you go too far, you know, she's gonna start to look way too silky smooth, and we don't want that. So we're just gonna push it just a little bit. just to get rid of some of that grain that comes from the iPhone. And to me, before, after, this image is looking really good, and this is about where we had it originally. The last thing we can do is we can hit the remove chromatic aberration and enable profile here, and that's gonna kind of fix this image up a little bit so it doesn't have that wide lens look. And to me, that's looking pretty good. So we've got, again, before, after, and this is looking pretty solid. This is a great looking photo compared to what it was before. So moving on to the next photo, we've got another one of Kelsey. Okay, so we've reset the image. This one, I'm not gonna walk through it as much because I'm gonna do just about the same thing I did on the last one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do this edit real quick, and you can just kind of follow along as I go. Okay, and there we go. So we've done just pretty much the exact same thing for the most part that we did to the last image. And if we look at before and after, there you go. We've kind of given it almost a vignette with everything that we've done. We've brightened her up a bit here, and then we've turned the colors again to make them look a little orange to match kind of that fall vibe. Okay, so on this next photo, there's a lot more to it. So I'm gonna try to keep it moving fairly quick, but I'm also gonna walk you through it. The edits on this one, if you pay attention here, nothing really happened in our standard raw edit. So I didn't even adjust anything up here with our standard raw edit when it comes to exposure, saturation, even the curves. Mostly focused on color over here in the HSL, and then everything else happened on these filters. So I've got a couple different radial filters here on the foreground, kind of bringing some of this foreground-ish stuff to life, and then some graduated filters to darken up the sky and the road and kind of bring all this stuff to life the way you see it now. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of walk you through a little bit of what I did. I'm gonna delete everything like I have been and then show you how I did what I did here. Okay, so we're gonna reset this. This is the before, you just saw the after. So I'm just gonna walk you through how I edited this photo the last time. What we're gonna do, we're gonna start off, we're not gonna mess with any of this camera raw. We are just going to make a radial filter, and we will drag this out to cover the majority of this foreground area here. So once we get that, we're gonna check the invert box again. Then I'm just gonna warm this up a bit, and then I'm gonna also bring the exposure up probably close to 3/4 of a stop is where I had it. Then the next thing, I'm just gonna make another radial filter on this side. So we're gonna warm this up. And then we're also gonna brighten this up a bit more because part of this is gonna be affected by another layer that we're gonna put down in a little bit. So we're just gonna go ahead and bump this up almost 2 stops here. So we're gonna hit enter and then hit enter again, and that's gonna back us out of that. So we've got before, after. So it's not really looking as good right now. However, it's going to momentarily. We're gonna click the graduated filter here. So we'll take our graduated filter, just gonna kind of drag this out a little bit. We're gonna keep this pretty tight because we don't want a lot of feather. Next thing we're gonna do, I just wanna warm it up a little bit more. So we're gonna bump that warmth up a bit, and then we're gonna also bump our exposure up a little bit here. This is all about the layers in this image. So this is just a lot of layers that are gonna kind of manipulate this image. So right now it's starting off, it may look funny, but it's all gonna kind of compile and make one good image. This one's going to affect the sky. Stretch this feather just a little bit here. And then for this, we're gonna be manipulating a lot of color. So what I wanna do is I wanna go ahead and bring this temperature down and kind of cool this off so that way we can bring the blues out. And then we're gonna bump up our tint and bring out these purples you see down here. So we're just gonna bump this tint a bit, push that up, and then we're gonna drop this exposure down. So this is gonna be what's gonna kind of create that night sky that we had, but also keep some of that color. And then we'll bump the saturation just a little here, and maybe the sharpness just a touch, kind of sharpen that up. So now, before, after, so we can kind of see where this is going. We're bringing it to life now. So the next thing, we're gonna do another graduated filter. This one is going to come up and be our foreground. So again, first thing we'll do, we will kind of warm this up just a touch here. Then we're gonna bring this exposure down, kind of darken this foreground just a touch. Then we're gonna bump the contrast up. And then again, we'll just kind of bring the saturation up just a little bit. So right now we've got before, after, before, after. So I think I want to bring this foreground down just a little bit and darken it up a little bit more. So let's just see what happens when we bring, I'm actually gonna, I think last time I used another layer, and we're gonna do that as well here. And this one, we're gonna actually stretch this feather out a bit and bring this point down around in here. And then we're just gonna bring this exposure down. So now we kind of have, rather than having all of this dark, we kind of have this nice feather. So it's a little bit darker here in the foreground, and it's brightening up a little bit as we go. And we'll keep bringing that down just a touch. And I'm liking the way that's looking. I want to come back over here to this radial filter. I want to play with this one a little bit more. Maybe make this a little bit bigger and kind of brighten up a little bit more of this foreground too. We'll bump the shadows up just a touch. Before and after. And right now, I mean, that's looking pretty good to me. When you look at the before and after, you do see where we added light here and here, but I'm liking the way this image looks personally. And I think we're gonna roll with the way it looks right here. So moving on to our next one, we will go through these really quickly. This is one of a waterfall. We've got some leaves here, some foreground to kind of break up this image and to give us a little more of an element to this image. So we are going to reset this one. Okay, so first things first with this one, I'm going to use this warm contrast filter again. So we're just gonna go ahead and select that. And then we are going to bring our exposure down because this is very overexposed. Next thing I wanna do is I'm just gonna bump our vibrance and saturation just a little bit. With these small adjustments, already this photo is starting to look how it was. The next thing that we'll do is we are going to hit our noise reduction a little bit. And then I'm also going to sharpen the image just a little bit. This corner's kind of dark. I want to bring in a little bit of light right here. So I'm just going to get a radial and we're just going to warm it up a little bit here. Push that warmth and expose it a little bit to kind of bring more of this leaf and everything to life here. And then we'll give it a little bit of contrast here. And that is doing a little bit, not a lot, but it's doing a little bit here. Kind of brighten that corner up just a touch. Come over here, we're going to grab the radial filter. We're just going to cover this waterfall. Since this is the center, we just want to kind of brighten this up just a little bit here. And all I really want to do is bring this exposure up, and then we're going to bring our shadows up. And right there, before, after, this is looking pretty good. Last photo. So this one of Kelsey sitting on this rock trying to fly. We will go ahead and we will reset this. Okay, so first things first, like we have on the other ones, we're just gonna come over here, we're gonna click this warm contrast profile because this is what we're going with. We're gonna bring this exposure down, probably about 1.5 stops or so, because we're gonna bring her back to life with a filter. Next thing, we're gonna give this a little bit of clarity on this image, and then we'll just bump up our vibrance and our saturation here. We're just gonna come over here and we're gonna sharpen this a little bit. Give it a little bit of sharpening here, and then we're also gonna bump up our noise reduction, kind of get rid of some of the noise. Next thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna grab this graduated filter. We're gonna come up here to this corner. We're gonna give it a little bit here. We're just gonna kind of warm this up a touch. And then I almost wanna vignette this a little bit. So I'm just gonna bring the exposure down a little bit here, not too much. Get out of that, because that's looking pretty good. Then I'm gonna come over here to our radial filter, and I'm just gonna select this area with Kelsey. And we're just gonna adjust our exposure. That's looking pretty good. Bring these shadows up. And then I'm gonna spread this out a little bit more, and then we will feather it a little bit as well, so it's not as harsh. It's looking pretty good. So before, after, just like that. We've taken each of these photos and kind of really brought them to life, giving them a little more contrast, a little more color, and it's pretty easy manipulation once you know what you're doing. And you can take these iPhone photos and really bring them to life pretty easily. All right, guys, so that may have been a little bit longer than I had expected. However, I think we got the message across and we showed how easily it is to take iPhone photos that look pretty good and bring them to life in Lightroom on the desktop. Now, the same stuff can be done in your iPhone. I'm gonna do one photo for you real quick in the iPhone just to show kind of the quick basics. You're really just gonna repeat the same thing you did here on your iPhone. It's very simple. We're just gonna knock this out real quick. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do, I'm gonna come over here to profiles. I like these artistic profiles. Artistic 5 is very close to that warm contrast that we used. So we're gonna select that. Then the next thing I wanna do is come over here to our lighting and exposure. We're gonna drop that just a bit here. We're gonna bring this down because we're gonna bring her back again with a filter. And we can bump up that contrast just a touch. And then we will come over to color. We're gonna bump up the vibrance and the saturation here. And then we'll come over to effects. We're gonna give it a little bit of clarity here, kind of sharpen it up. And then we will come over to selective. We're gonna click this little plus icon, select the radial, and we will just kind of make this oval shape. And we'll click light for exposure. And we're just gonna bring the exposure on Kelsey up a bit here and just kind of brighten her up. We can kind of spread this out a little bit to feather it. This right here is looking pretty good already. So we'll go ahead and we're gonna come over, click this check mark to finish that up. Last thing we'll do, we'll come to detail. Again, we'll add a little bit of noise reduction to the image, and we'll go to optics, remove chromatic aberration, and enable lens corrections. Make a little bit of an adjustment there, and it's as easy as that. Right there, you've got your edits done, and this photo looks very much like the one that we just did on the computer. And it was super easy to do on the phone, took no time at all. So looking at this, it shows you how easy it is to do this on your iPhone. Pretty much the exact same thing you're doing on your computer, but if you're on the road, you want to edit a photo, put it on the gram, you can do it on your phone very easily with Lightroom. And there's plenty of other apps that allow you to do this exact same stuff, but we're not going to get into those. We're focused on Lightroom for this video. This compared to the photo on the computer look very similar. And to me, if you're really just trying to post a picture to Instagram, which if you're taking photos with your iPhone, that's probably what you're doing, posting on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. This is a perfect way to do it. You don't need all the software on your computer. You don't have to have a fast computer to do it. You can be on the ride home from a trip and work on edits on your phone. So that's all we've got for this week, guys. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. And if you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and come back each week for more Mondays with Mike. Sometimes it may end up on a Tuesday, just depends on how busy I was over the weekend. Again, I hope everybody enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button and we'll see you next week.